Hey y'all, I'm Hope. Welcome back. Today I'm talking about everything I'm hoping to read in November. I hesitate to call this a TBR because November is going to be kind of writing hell for me. It's the end of my first semester in grad school and I have 3 papers due this month that I'm kind of in the weeds currently on all of those, doing the research, drafting, well, not even drafting yet. I'm doing the research. I'm kind of pulling together sources and taking notes. I'm in kind of that stage right now, so I know that the rest of this month is just going to be a little bit hectic getting that done. But I would like to fit in some reading. I like to try and fit in some reading as self-care whenever I can. That's stuff that I'm just reading like for myself. Fingers crossed I can fit some of these in. But I have kind of 3 categories. I have some books that I would like to finish that I've started already. I have some books that I meant to read in October that I'd like to carry over that are quite short. And then I have some nonfiction books. I probably won't read all of them, but I would like to read at least one of them. So that first category, things that I need to finish. The first one that I'm probably going to prioritize here is Ocean's Echo by Everina Maxwell. I got an e-arc of this, but the timing was just bad for me. I had requested it pretty early, but I got... Oh my god, my cats are being really cute. Hang on. So cute. I have no idea what I was just saying. You're gonna have seen an inserted clip of my cats being adorable. They're laying on my bed and they're not usually very cuddly, like they sit with each other sometimes, but every once in a while they get to be really cuddly, and my one cat, who's usually Destructo cat, he just all of a sudden got up and went over and like cuddled into my other cats. Elwood is the black cat and Pumpkin is the kind of silver tabby. And my heart. Oh my god. Okay, yeah, so I got an e-arc of Ocean's Echo, and I got it about 3 weeks before the book came out, but unfortunately the timing just didn't work for me because I was so busy already with school stuff that I tried to read it and I just didn't get through it. I did start it, I'm about halfway through, and I'm really enjoying it so far, so at this point, based on what I've read so far, I would highly recommend you get it if you liked Winter's Orbit, her first book, at all. I think that it takes some of the stuff that Winter's Orbit did and just does it better. So really enjoying it. Would love to finish it at some point and get that review in on NetGalley. Oh, I should probably mention it's a political sci-fi, kind of political anti-military sci-fi with a romance plot as well. So then the second book I would like to finish is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas, which is a haunted house story set in Mexico in the 1800s. And it's following this woman named Beatriz who marries Rodolfo, I think is his name. And she's basically trying to secure her and her mother's future because her father died in the aftermath of the Mexican War for Independence. And so she marries this guy planning to kind of renovate his family estate, which has kind of gotten kind of run down during the time of the war. There's not really many people living there, so there's just no one there to do the upkeep. And so she goes intending to renovate it and kind of bring her mother there and secure their future, except she gets there and the house is very clearly haunted, and she realizes that the family members there are not going to be her allies, and she ends up turning to a priest for help, and he also happens to be a witch. I think it works better if you go in expecting it to just like be a straight up haunted house story, because I think that's really what it is, but I appreciate that this does not wait to give you the scares. Like, it starts in on like the spooky atmosphere and the creepy stuff happening very quickly, and I really appreciate that. This is the kind of haunted house story I really like, is what I'm trying to say. The last thing that I would like to finish is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. If you've seen any of my older videos, you may know that I started back in like September this project trying to read dark academia because I have a lot of it on my shelves, and I still really want to do that. I've gotten kind of stuck here where I'm like 60-ish pages into this. I got kind of stuck because I was, at the same time I was reading this, I started reading Absalom for a class, and that kind of took priority, and it took a lot of brain power to read that, and I ended up setting this aside. So I'd like to come back to this in November and finish it because I am still excited about this vlog project of trying to read the dark academia stuff off my shelves. Need to finish this so I can kind of continue on with that. But it's about this guy from California who ends up going to a very small liberal arts college in like Vermont, and he gets involved with a very strange group of students, and then a murder happens. And we know about the murder right at the beginning of the story. It's literally on the first page. But the story is him telling how he ended up in this situation and how the murder kind of came about. Okay, so this next category was things that I want to carry over from October. More specifically, these are books that I meant to read during Weekend Ween, and I ended up swapping in a book I needed to read for class and reading that instead because it had a monster in it. So like it worked for Weekend Ween. I just didn't get to read the stuff that I originally had planned. So these were two that I think are going to be relatively quick reads that I would like to carry over because I am really excited to read them. And the first one is Uzumaki by Junji Ito, which is a horror manga about a town that is obsessed with spirals. This other carryover is The Hungry Earth by Nicholas Kaufman. He's one of my favorite authors and I never hear anybody talk about him, but I really enjoy both his urban fantasy and his horror books. So this one is the beginning of a new series, and the sequel comes out, I think, at the end of this month, like the 29th maybe, and I would really like to be done with this one so that I can pre-order that one. This is a medical thriller about medical examiner Laura Powell, and she lives in a small town in New York, and people in her town start behaving strangely, and ultimately this kind of culminates in a death, and so she begins investigating, and what she finds happening in the body is quite strange, and she ends up in a race against the clock to stop whatever is happening so that she can prevent more people from dying. Kind of typical medical thriller, I think, setup. But I do think this is going to be interesting because I don't know if you can tell from the cover, but there's some mushrooms. So this is fungal horror, and I've been noticing this kind of trend lately in fungal horror. I can think of several books, recent releases in the last 3 years that have fungal horror in them. There's also some video games I can think of that have it, and so I'm kind of curious about this trend of fungal horror that's popped up recently. So this last category is nonfiction, and I don't anticipate reading all of these, but I would like to fit in one of them. I'm just not really sure what I'm in the mood for, so I will figure that out later once we get into November. But the first option I have here is Nightmare Fuel by Nina Neseth, which is a book about the neuropsychology of horror movies. Like, why do they scare us? Why do we love them? That kind of stuff. I think it's going to be really fun. And then I've got Entangled Life by Marilyn Sheldrake, which is an entire book about fungus. This kind of ties into my interest in fungal horror as a trend, and I've also heard that this is really well written. A friend of mine read this and said it was really good and really interesting, so I am looking forward to picking this up at some point, and I think I would kind of categorize this in as part of like this not quite formal project, but informal project I'm doing where I'm kind of investigating fungal horror. Like I'm seeking out stuff that has that and kind of seeing if I'm picking up any patterns just because I'm interested in it. Then I've got Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall, which I've only heard good things about. I think it's kind of primarily about the ways that white feminisms tend to fail women of color, and I think that that's a topic that is really important and also really interesting. I've gotten to learn a little bit about feminism as a sociology student in undergrad, and now as an English major as a graduate student. I think this is an important topic, and it's one that I would really like to know more about. And then the last option I have here is American Sherlock by Kate Winkler Dawson, which is a book about the kind of history of forensic science in the US, and that is right up my alley. I really like history of science and history of medicine and history of forensics kind of books. I really enjoy those. So that's kind of my potential selection for a nonfiction pick. Whatever I pick is probably going to get read in like the end of the month because I should be mostly done with papers by around like Thanksgiving break. Mostly done, not totally done, but mostly done. So I'm thinking like I'll have a little more bandwidth to be reading some nonfiction at that point. But those are all the books that I'm hoping to read in November. I keep almost saying October. I don't anticipate reading all of them, but I would like to read some of them. We will see. Thanks for joining me. Let me know if you've read any of these books down in the comments below and what your thoughts were. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.